Now, since I've started paying attention closely to the game of basketball, more so specific the NBA, one thing I've noticed is that the Miami Heat, they have this uncanny ability to deal with adversity. And how I realized it over the last 4 or 5 years, they had done just a great job of dealing with the injury bug. Like they had some injuries to their best players that kept them out a handful of games, but they were able to put out players on the basketball court, get the most out of those guys, and those results led them to some high places while their best players were dealing with injuries that would have killed the season for a lot of other teams. And now what I'm seeing with the Miami Heat, now this is a different type of bounce back that I'm witnessing, because everyone had written the Miami Heat off after last season. And last season, just from the outside looking in, it was very emotionally, very mentally challenging. So I can only imagine how it felt for the fans, for the players, for the organization. But the Jimmy Butler saga, it did come to an unfortunate end. And Jimmy Butler, he had some fantastic years with the Miami Heat. Jimmy Butler with the Miami Heat, he really helped my YouTube channel talking about his greatness and talking about how the Miami Heat was staying afloat all those times that they was dealing with those injuries. So he definitely had an impactful time with the Miami Heat. So that's why I said it came to an unfortunate end. Contract situations, that's one of the quickest ways that you can drive a wedge between a player and the franchise. And obviously Pat Riley and Jimmy Butler couldn't come to an agreement. Things got very ugly, very uncharacteristic for what we usually see from the Miami Heat. But it ended to a trade with Jimmy Butler going to the Golden State Warriors, with the Miami Heat getting back some players of their own. And they brought in guys like Andrew Wiggins from the Golden State Warriors, Kyle Anderson, and they also got Davion Mitchell from the Toronto Raptors. And they get a 2025 protected first-round pick from the Golden State Warriors. So that was the deal for the Miami Heat, and they just ship away Jimmy Butler. And after this happened, the Miami Heat, they missed the playoffs for the first time after 5 straight seasons, and everyone was ready to write the wheels off the Miami Heat. And me, myself, I was a little guilty of that too. I thought after the departure of Jimmy Butler, I thought it was just a big gut punch for the Miami Heat. And honestly, it looks like that was just for that season, because when we just look at the Miami Heat right now, and we look at this roster, we honestly overlooked a lot of it. And we know that situation with Pat Riley and Jimmy Butler, it was so big, it kind of made us forget about the rest of the guys on this team, because you don't go on those deep playoff runs and get to the NBA Finals just based off, just the success of one player. But we did forget that the Miami Heat, they do have 2 other all-star caliber players, one in Bam Adebayo, the other Tyler Herro, who we haven't even seen yet so far this NBA season. They have an NBA champion on the team in Andrew Wiggins, who's still a high-quality player. They have a young, developing player in Kalon Ware, who is really good, and some other high-quality young players on this team, Jaime Jaquez, Nikola Topic. They picked up Fontecchio from the Detroit Pistons. So some very intricate guys on the Miami Heat, and some guys that can play the game of basketball. And they also went out this offseason and they made a trade, and they brought in Norman Powell from the Los Angeles Clippers. It was a 3-team deal that included the Los Angeles Clippers, the Miami Heat, and the Utah Jazz. And to participate in this 3-team deal, the Miami Heat, they just had to sacrifice Kevin Love and Kyle Anderson, and they bring in Norman Powell, who's coming off the best year of his NBA career, averaging 21.8 points per game for the Los Angeles Clippers. And before Kawhi Leonard returned, Norman Powell, he proved that he could be, and I know it was a short sample size, but he kept the Los Angeles Clippers season afloat. And I know people talk about James Harden a lot, but before Kawhi Leonard came back from his injury, Norman Powell was averaging 24 points per game, and the Los Angeles Clippers, they had themselves a spot in the Western Conference playoffs. So this was actually a great acquisition by the Miami Heat, and a move that we all obviously slept on, because looking at the Miami Heat so far this season, I know it's early, 3 games in, but I really like what I've seen so far from this team. But bringing in Norman Powell and looking at the collection of talent that they have now, a really good front court, and that's a lot of things people don't realize. Bam has been able to play the 4 over these last handful of games going back to last season. That has been beneficial for him, but they have the talented front court with Kalon Ware and Bam Adebayo. They have 2 guards who can shoot the lights out of the basketball with Tyler Herro and Norman Powell. They have a lockdown point of attack point guard defender in Davion Mitchell. They have pieces off the bench who can come in and score the basketball. Jaime Jaquez, Simon Fontecchio. So the Miami Heat, they have a really good team, and they're going to be able to be competitive, and I think we're going to see the Heat back in the playoffs again this season. And looking at the Heat, these new roster changes, it has also changed their style of play. Those 5 years that we've seen the Miami Heat go to the playoffs 5 straight years, really leaning on their defense, being a physical, defensive, gritty team, struggled on offense at times. And of course, when they were fully healthy, the offense looked a lot differently. But especially over the last couple of recent years, the offense for the Miami Heat was looking very subpar. Now with this year, with the roster additions, the Miami Heat, they've taken on a new playing style. They're playing at a much higher pace. They're one of the top fastest teams in the NBA right now. And they're also a top, like I said, I know it's just 3 games in, but they're also a top 10 team in offensive rating right now, ranking 9 in offensive rating. I just took a little intermission there, but looking at the Miami Heat, they're ranking 2nd in the pace so far this season, which you guys know, which is really crazy because it's so different than the brand of basketball that they've been playing over the last couple of years. And they're also 5th in the league right now in points per game at 127 points per game. And I think this is something that's very sustainable for the Miami Heat, because like we said, this is not something that they're playing their same style of basketball and they're just scoring more. But no, this looks a lot different for the Miami Heat, and we're going to jump into those changes. But also another thing that's very important is that the Miami Heat, while playing this new frenetic style, playing so fast and putting up more points, they're still playing at a high level on the defensive side of the ball, as they rank 2nd in the NBA through these first 3 games in defensive rating. So they're still maintaining that physical and lockdown defensive identity. But getting back to the change of philosophy, or the change in the offensive philosophy for the Miami Heat, it just makes a lot of sense just looking at their personnel. They're a very athletic team. Looking at their front court, Andrew Wiggins, Bam Adebayo, Kalon Ware, all guys who can run the floor and who are very athletic and can get up and punch the ball. So now what the Miami Heat do after every turnover, after every rebound, they're immediately pushing the basketball up the court. And looking at this team is actually very fascinating, because they're one of those teams that it's really been like this the last few years for the Miami Heat. They don't really have an high assist guy. Jimmy Butler might have those games where he has an 8 or a 10 assist game, but most of the time it's a point guard by committee type style where it's continuous ball movement, and they rack up their assists by just making the right plays. So they've added that same style of basketball, but now they're just pushing the tempo with it. And of course the addition of Norman Powell helps as well, because he's what they call a gunslinger, but in basketball he's always looking to attack the offense. So far this season he's already averaging 24 points. And with Norman Powell being so aggressive, it's also important that he's just as efficient with his shot selection, and he's been so efficient to start the year. He's shooting 47% from the field, 50% from three-point land, and 90% from the free throw line. So he's been big time for the Miami Heat, and he's been able to serve as that #1 perimeter scoring option while Tyler Herro gets healthy for the Miami Heat. And then also it doesn't end with Bam Adebayo and Norman Powell. That's just where it starts for their new tempo style of play. But we look at the wings on this team. We kind of briefly mentioned Andrew Wiggins, but he definitely has the skill set, the physical makeup to play an up and style game of basketball, especially what he brings on the defensive side of the ball. Looking to that second unit, looking at Jaime Jaquez and looking at Simone, I think it's Simone Fontecchio, and then also looking at Nikola Jovic. All three of these guys are very versatile, very mobile wings who possesses offensive versatility and tremendous size. These three guys are huge, and they're so fluid in playing off of the basketball and playing without the basketball in their hands. So right now, they currently have 7 guys in double figures. They have 4 out of their 5 guys averaging double figures, everyone except for Davion Mitchell. And then the 3 guys off the bench, Simone Fontecchio, Nikola Jovic, and Jaime Jaquez Jr. are also averaging double digits. So far, the Miami Heat, after being, really written off by everyone, I think they're going to be just fine, and they're going to be able to compete in the Eastern Conference this season. And I think they're going to be very entertaining with this new style of play, this new up and down style of play. And we haven't even seen these guys with Tyler Herro yet, and they've been able to score the basketball in bunches. So you guys let me know, what do you think? What can we expect? What will be next with this offense when they get a player like Tyler Herro returning, who's coming off the best season of his NBA career? But leave a like and then subscribe for more weekly content. We do this all the time, man, and that's curtains.